Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Martin, technical editor with Mother Earth News and Grit, coming to you from a Kansas garden at the height of summer. So I'm dealing with humidity and mosquitoes right now, but the tomatoes are bearing. It's great, it's lush. You would think that all I'd have to do the rest of the year was water and weed. But my mind has already turned to fall gardening, as should yours. Even though it's the height of summer, fall gardening requires you to do some planting during summertime. Now, you may think that that's impossible other than starting your seeds indoors and then transplanting them outside when it gets cooler and less humid. But there are some ways that you can get your fall garden started outdoors, even though it's hot and humid and dry. And I'm going to tell you about them today. So the first thing you need to do, of course, is to select crops that are cold hardy or like cool weather. I'm thinking carrots, lettuces that will be cold hardy and maybe survive a frost or two. And the like. Turnips are another good crop for fall. You want to think of crops that will survive the cooler weather, which is ironic because you're going to be planting them at the height of summer. The second thing you need to do is grab your seed packets and find the days to harvest. Often it's like for carrots, many of my carrots are about 50 to 60 days to harvest. So you count backwards from the first frost of the fall, 50 days, and that often lands me about this time of the year, middle to late July, maybe even early August is a little late. So again, you're talking to the height of the summer. How do you get things to germinate if, like carrots, you really should plant them in the site in the garden and not plant them indoors and then transplant them later. Root crops don't like to be transplanted much. So what I'm going to show you is a very simple trick that a lot of gardeners use to get their fall garden started outdoors despite the dry heat. Loose weave fabric like burlap is your friend in these situations. You can use burlap bags. I've even used an old tablecloth that was lace that I cut up to fit the top of a container that I was planting carrots in. The loose weave fabric is great because it's going to, as you can see, lets light through. You can see my shirt here, so you know it's letting light through. And also water is easy to get through, but a little bit of fabric, the fibers are going to hold the moisture in and basically lessen some of the intensity of the sun, but still let light through so that your seeds get enough light to germinate in the case of carrots. This is great for carrots. I've bought a roll here. You can use old burlap bags. This roll is perfect I got it at a craft store, perfect width for a row of carrots. I plant typically in places in the garden where I've had spring crops that have bolted. For example, spring lettuces, peas in July are gone in the heat, at least to the climate I'm living in, which is zone 6. So in that empty space in the garden, what a better way to start your fall crops now. So what I'll do is plant the seeds as the packet directs. At the level or depth of the soil, the packet directs. If necessary, cover them with soil. And then lay out the burlap on top of the row, or if it's in a container, just on top of the pot, on the soil, and soak the burlap thoroughly. You want to make sure it's very well soaked. And then every day I will check that crop, that row, that container, to see if the seeds have germinated. When the seeds have germinated, I pull up the burlap very carefully, so I don't want to pull my seedlings with the burlap, set it aside for use again the following year, and grow the crops as normal. The burlap is giving them the protection they need, the seeds need, to germinate in the heat and often dry heat of summer. The height of summer, it's very hard for you to keep the soil moist enough for carrots to germinate, for example. But not when you use burlap. It gives you just the amount of protection you need to get those seeds started. I do find sometimes with my fall crops that I also need to cover them with a hoop situation, like a low tunnel, because the grasshoppers will attack them and destroy them. So what I do is I have a series of reusable, year after year, flexible PVC pipes that are about, depending on my row width, about 5 feet in length. You just bend those and stick them into the ground and put row cover over them, secure the row cover with old broomsticks or tool handles or bricks, and that will keep the grasshoppers from decimating your hard-won carrot seedlings or turnip seedlings. It works great. It still lets the light and the air through, but it keeps the grasshoppers out. It also lets the rainwater through. And then you'll have a great crop, and by the time you get to probably September, you'll have a wonderful fall crop established in your garden, and you'll be harvesting right up until the first frost or maybe later. Sometimes lettuces, you can protect them with a light row cover well past the first frost, especially if it's light. So burlap again, or an old lace tablecloth, or even a loose weave, almost like a cheesecloth or a gauze, works great in your garden at the height of summer to start those fall crops. Happy gardening, everyone. See you next time.